High grade Perfect Strike Gundam. Hey, what's up again everybody? It's Robert184, 2Rs2B's gundam.tk, and this is a review that's been 10 years in the waiting. I'm talking about the high grade Perfect Strike Gundam from Gundam Seed. Much anticipated. Early 2013 release. 1,700 yen, the price you can see there, high grade Gundam Seed, and you can see the name down there in English and in Japanese with a whole bunch of letters tacked on there, just like there's a whole bunch of weapons tacked on. And in the re-release series, this is number 17 from Bandai. And don't forget, you can get this kit and lots more great Gundam and more from HobbyLink Japan. Links down below. The Perfect Strike itself has a very interesting history, as it's the kind of thing that everybody was building and playing with 10 years ago, even though it was always non-canon. So when Gundam Seed came out and became the absolute monster hit that it was, the Strike Gundam was a classic take on the RX-78-2 with the ability to swap on and off its backpacks or striker packs and basically just suit its needs in terms of battle. It could have a sword, it could go launcher for long range, or it could have just the AL strike on for mobility and just general cool red looks. However, everybody who took a look at these together said, well, very simply, you've got the launcher on the right shoulder, and you've got the sword on the left side, and you've got the AL on the back. Can't we all just put them together? And for a few kits, like the 1/60th kit, not the original one that was just the Strike Gundam, you definitely could play around with some variations like that. But for fans of canon like me, it was the kind of thing where when they did the HD re-releases 10 years after the fact, that we actually got to see them. They reanimated the scenes where instead of it just being the Strike Gundam running around, instead, we got to see it with all three striker packs, which, of course, Bandai is going to capitalize by releasing it here in this high-grade set. And, of course, it is something that's the real grade spinning around there. Two kits, 2,500 yen, that you can put it all together. This one's going to be a lot cheaper, but let's see how the quality stacks up. Box tour first, though, where you get to see the HD Remaster project and just look at that art and the amount of things. I suppose it's going to make total sense because you've already got a hit and all the seiyus have already been paid for their voices. All you've got to do is fix up the art, and boy, did they ever with the Blu-ray release there. And if you want to take a look, here are some actual scenes of the Perfect Strike Gundam. How cool was it to see with its phase shift armor off as they loaded on the striker packs? That was exciting. In the late season, it wasn't Kira who was going to pilot that, which they are going to address. And here you actually get to see it in action with all of the sword packs on there, with all the striker packs on there. And who is going to be the man, the myth, the legend? He of the incredible seiyu from just about every Gundam series that matters. Well, anyway, after the 1990s, Mula Flaga was going to be the one who decided, hey, I'm going to become an MS pilot there, dear Captain. And off he went before he was eventually just going to drop most of these. It would have been cool, though. They're going to talk about the gun barrel striker pack. That would have been a lot of fun. Too bad that never happened, but nonetheless, 10 years in the waiting, finally here. Here to the other side, the focus is going to go back to the model itself. As you can see, an unpainted version here that is going to have seals all over the place. But you'll notice that it's going to look good in the parts that count, as you're going to see that gray inner frame protruding from Strike's legs. And if you just take a look up there, on the launcher and the sword striker packs there, you can just see that there's going to be tons of color apps there. How much is plastic? That remains to be seen. But speaking of seals, you can see that there's going to be all sorts of stuff, Omni, and the various numbers that you can attach on there. And he is going to work well, of course, with an action base too. And how about that shot there with all the weapons brought to bear instead of just hanging off his back there? First of all, the focus is going to be on the sword striker pack there, as we get to see the Panzer Ice and Rocket Anchor, which is going to be looking all good there, shooting out, ready to grab anybody, and the Midas Messer, the beam boomerang there. Clear parts are going to be attached on, and it looks like you can do some variations with that. And if you want to go down to the big guns down there, yes, perhaps Force Impulse became a little bit more famous with its anti-ship sword, but here's where it began, as it's actually going to have some nice clear parts there. Hopefully well-defined. That should make it look great once it's in hand. The launcher pack, though, is not to be forgotten, as we've got the Agni Hyper Impulse Beam Cannon down here, which is going to be coming out from under the left arm. You'll notice that the shoulders here are going to be just off-centered in terms of the coloring. It's still going to look great, I'd say, because of it. It just sort of adds a little bit of asymmetrical balance, if that makes sense. And here you can see that the silhouette, no matter what form he's in, is going to look pretty good. But one thing you can guess is if you're going to be running multiple striker packs, is he's going to be needing a lot more power. That's going to be provided here with the batteries that are going to be on the back here. 4 of them tacked on, and they actually reflected that in the anime, which is a bit of a nice touch. But to be honest, if you already saw the real grade spinning around there, I think I like the looks of that. Without the battery packs in there, we'll see what kind of options you're going to have when you put it all together. Nonetheless, just seeing it all on display here, over the back, or actually out in action, this guy is ready for war. And it's inside the box we go, where you're going to be getting down there. Lots of little decals there, and some very colorful, multicolored 4 plates there. Top and bottom there, and this is definitely going to be fun part here of the perfect variety. All sorts of seals though, perhaps a little bit worrying, but some nice black under there with some red that really does pop. That looks like they have revised the colors quite a bit to go along with even more black there. You can see the lead that we're going to be using, and some white to actually make up the rest of the body. Old than new here for the plates with 4 colors here. On the A, it's just going to say Strike Gundam on there, but the colors are definitely popping all over the place here. The red for the shield and the feet is looking great to go along with the very small parts here that are going to make up the goatee and the jewel for the V-fin. And we've also got the blue parts up there, just 3 of them, but it's going to be this what would normally be a dull gray, but instead it's got a little bit of a gunmetal shine to it, which is looking good. And the V-fin down there, all 4 parts, cut off the childproof part, and you're going to have a lot of fun with this. The B plate here is also for just the regular Strike Gundam with a few good and bad things on here. I still remember back in the day when I was debating whether to buy this high grade, and the fact here that the shoulders weren't going to have the very familiar gray up there on them was definitely a big turnoff down there unless you want to go paint it up properly. You can see that we're going to have the front and back for the face there to go along, and down at the bottom, if you take a look here, these parts have been added on there, so you've got a beam saber in ugly white down there, despite the fact that we are going to be getting some pink elsewhere. And you can see the beam sabers attached. And whereas A and B said Strike Gundam on here, this one specifically is going to say the Ale Strike Gundam on here. You can see that you're going to have the black parts that are going to be making up the parts of the striker pack. The nice part here though is that they're going to be nice and glossy and quite different from the gunmetal that we've seen on the A plate. With the D plate returning to the generic Strike Gundam label there, although you can see that this is clearly going to be making up the parts for the Ale Strike one in particular. But what's going to make this kit perfect is labeled as such here, as it's going to say Perfect Strike Gundam here, written on the E plate. 4 colors here to go along with the 4 on the A plate. Definitely good to see. These parts I'm not going to be too crazy about just in terms of the general looks, although you'll notice that they are going to have a lot of lining options there if you want to go, and you're basically just going to snap them together. And we've also got some white parts there that are going to look good for the blades. And speaking of blades, if you take a look up there, you can see that there's a long one, a short one, and one that you can put down at the bottom, which is going to look good. To go along with the big gun there, done up in green. To go along with the shoulder parts, there's not going to be all that many parts, but if you just take a look at the details that are going to be carved in there, looking good there. And if you go on to the baby blue here, you can see where the beam parts are going to fit in there quite nicely. The handle here is going to be attached, and otherwise it's going to be all the other fun parts, including those shoulders that you've got to put together. Before the F plate is going to continue with the Perfect Strike Gundam tradition here, well, the one that's just been created, and you can see that you're going to have these large black parts down there and some other attachments, including some piping. This is going to be glossy. I wouldn't say it's quite as glossy as what we saw before here on the C plate. Nonetheless, it's still cool to have some options in terms of colors, and the more colors they're going to put in these small areas, the better it's going to look. But as exciting as the plates are, always going to be a little bit of disappointment when you get this. This is almost going to be bigger than a polycap sheet here, pretty much. And what you're going to be getting on here, well, it is going to be specific to the Perfect Strike Gundam. Big red parts there to add on to the pack, and even though we got to see that there's a yellow V-fin, there's not going to be any other yellow molded on there, which means seals are going to have to be doing that. You can also see a mix of white and blue there to go along with some more gray, and the very familiar eyes. Somewhat disappointing, but then again, you know this is all going to be remedied by the eventual remastered master grade. And for additional fun, you can actually go and add all sorts of labels there. 105, 131, 252, X 370 down there. HG 1144 Seed 1, it's going to be listed on there. They're not going specific here for the Perfect Strike. Omni labels all over the place, and some nice Archangel ones there. And it is going to be pretty cool because if you want to throw this on his right shoulder, it is going to look good under the green parts. A quick glance at the manual there, and you can see the word that may describe this best. Almost perfect. Well, in terms of a high grade anyway. And you can see here from the plates that you're only going to be omitting 2 parts from B and from C, and the rest of the newer plates are all going to be used. And after that, after you build up the body and the striker packs here on this 5-page fold out, the ridiculous collection of weapons are all going to be attached, and an action base too is going to slot in there quite nicely. You can see some more great graphics there from the front to the back, including some scenes from the anime itself, and what a pose. Front and back shots here as all the paints are going to be laid out, and beside the launcher sensors, look at that, 9 different colors are going to go into this kit. Definitely not of the RX-78-2 vein. Well, I suppose that's what you get when you slap colors onto both shoulders down there. Some more good pictures there on how to put on the actual seals if you want to. Mula Flaga. And yes, it's looking great. So lots of fun seeing this previously imagination-only Gundam brought to life here in high-grade form. We've already been able to do it in the real grade, but it'll be fun to stack it up and see what kind of differences there are, especially those battery packs that are in the back. Then again, is this something that has been done before? And of course, we're going to be seeing it done again in a few more grades, especially of the Master variety, I'm sure. Anyway, everybody, stick around. Lots more to come. Thanks for watching, everybody. Imaginary Gundams finally brought to life. What are you talking about? Hey, I was real. Just because I was derpy doesn't mean that I wasn't real.